Yo, what's good, guys? It's time to cover some PoE. I'm very excited for this new league. Let's get right into it. Don't mind the look, by the way. I'm in witness protection mode right now. For anyone who gets concerned, that is a joke. I just don't feel like turning on the big light. It's early in the morning because I collapsed after the long day. We went straight from streams to raid, and then more. Like it was just a lot going on yesterday. I got really tired. I didn't bother actually sitting. I didn't feel like turning back on the light to record, but I wanted to get this out before the new day of information hits. So yesterday, two big things happened. They showed off of some of the acts in PoE2 with along with, in their big keynote with some cool features they talked about. And I'll talk about that in a separate video after the Q&A because I want to combine all of my PoE thoughts together or PoE2 thoughts together. So, but they also showed the new Challenge League, Path of Exile, Trial of the Ancestors. Yeah, the link I'll put it in the description so you can look at this page if you didn't already have it for whatever reason. Um, this league looks kind of cool. I don't think it's what I'm looking for. No. This league looks kind of cool. I wish they did a little bit better of a job explaining how this is going to play out in terms of gameplay flow. Just get a little bit of like a TFT-esque vibe going on here, or like generally an auto battler. The whole idea being you start out with a team of three that you then will grow over the course of this tournament. It's kind of like a roguelite in that when you lose or win, the run status resets. It's a lot like Sanctum in that line, right? I wonder if they're gonna have any like permanent carryovers, kind of like how Sanctum had relics. They didn't really show any of that. But this is a tournament run that's clearly deep in progress. Got quite a few units, got some equipment going on here. And now all of the placement stuff is really cool, but my number one concern with stuff like this always becomes kind of like Blight. At a certain point in Blight, our characters are so much more powerful than anything the league mechanic can offer. And I don't know if that'll be true in this league, right? Or if it's like, is this a problem when it goes core? It'll be interesting to see like how that works. Are there mechanisms they have in place with the build with the structure of the system so that you can't just gear check them? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm tentatively interested in this mechanic. I have a couple gripes with it being out of map again. I kind of want something that makes my map spicier. It's been a little bit since we had a good map spice up, right? Crucible was a bad league mechanic and also was too slow to actually make your maps feel good. Sanctum was fully out of map. Lake of Calandra was fully out of map. So the last league that we've had that was in map was Sentinel League, and Sentinel was I'm not the biggest fan of Sentinel personally, but that was a good league. And it felt good to be able to press button and make my map juicier. I kind of wanted something more map focused, but I'm always interested in things that I can min max, and this seems like at least at the surface seems to be deep enough that I could play around in it, similar to how I used to play around in like Heist when Heist League came out. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I most likely will be deep diving into the trial, as I'm always interested in new ways to make currency. Gotta see what the rewards are like. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. You can see some of the nice imagery here. This is a really nice screenshot of the arena. And, this is the winning screen. This is the screen after you've won a fight so you can buy things. So, here's some of the exclusive rewards. Now, on the stream, or when I was watching the stream, the first thing I said when I saw this tattoo system is, oh my god, another passive tree upgrade. Another one. Because you couldn't possibly have enough changes to the passive tree as it stands. This is making my life difficult. I started recording for a new series of videos I'm gonna drop that talk about that distill down the game to its basics. And I realized when I was making those videos that the passive tree is increasingly difficult to explain at that level. Like, what do you do? How do you explain the passive tree, right? And I figured it out, but like, and then I see this, and I'm like, wow, just making it harder. Either way, tattoos. Tattoos are single use replacements of small passives. In the first version, like this one here, replace a small strength passive skill with 8% fire res. So instead of 10 strength, it's 8 fire res. Or this one is instead of 10 dex, it's 2 ms. This is very nice. We have some interesting. Oh, and then let me show you the notable one as well. Then there's notable ones that you can only have one notable tattoo per attribute, but you get stuff like instead of 30 in, that's plus one level to all int gems. That's incredible because it's generally 1 point to pick these up, or in some cases you might have already had them and just had gotten rid of them because you no longer needed the attributes. So these are going to turn out to be pretty strong. I can't wait to see the list of effects for that. I probably won't get to see all of them until the torrent's live, or not even the torrent until the patch is live, like in those hours before the servers go up. But I'll be interested to see those. Then we also have a couple of special items called omens. These are new items that you carry around. You can carry one of these around, and then when the trigger happens, the effect is active. But you can only consume one per area, so it's not like you can stack your inventory full of these and it works. The ones that stand out to me, Portal on Death. This what's great. The other one that was major is this one, Omen of Fortune. If you're an old PoE player, this one registers immediately to you what this is. Trash to Treasure was a prophecy that got removed when Navali and the prophecy system were removed from the game. And there hasn't been an effect like it in the game for quite a while. And this has had some good side, some upside, and some downside. And Chris actually acknowledged this in the presentation when they showed Omen of Fortune, which is back in the day when Trash to Treasure existed, they were forced to put dummy uniques on unique tables to prevent Trash to Treasure from hitting good guaranteed uniques. When you think about like why there are so many things on the belt bases, or the existence of the Squire, for example, been paired with the Oppressor. There's a lot of combinations like this, by the way, of chanceable uniques that have a shitty chanceable counterpart. And the weighting makes it so that you barely ever would see the one you actually care about. But then when they remove Trash to Treasure, they stopped doing this. And so you end up with stuff like this league, the amount of this league, Crucible League, the amount of people who were making Emperor's Vigilance, my bad, the SST shield with massive ES was because it was guaranteed to chance into Emperor's Vigilance. You just had to stick with it long enough to spam orbs. And so that was something that he acknowledged, like, this is going to be a lot more powerful now that like we've stopped putting dumb uniques in the game. And so this right here, I expect to be rare and super expensive because Trash to Treasure was always expensive historically. This is going to be really cool though, either way. Over here, we have Intercourse Lock, and this is like the big kahuna of items from rewards, at least according, or part of it according to Chris. This is it's a lock of her hair. No shit. Which allows you to foresee what will happen with the next item that you use. You have this risky and all you need to take. Time to look into the future. You want to slam something? Time to look into the future. I think this is a very interesting concept. I have no idea how practical this actually is, but I think it's going to be really fun to use. I think it'll at least make you feel better about the high end crafting. Emphasis on high end. I don't think this is worthwhile at the low end at all, but this depends on rarity of the item and whatnot, because like crafting projects usually take several outcomes, right? Like it's there's many discussions about how you just be sitting there, annul, you like exalt, well, nope, didn't hit, reset, annul, exalt. So I'm not sure if this is good enough, but it'll depend on the quantity at which you get this. Make this like actually effective. All in all, these uniques seem pretty cool. I just want to see, like, I want to play around with the list of omens and tattoos in particular. There's also some special uniques, which I mean, yeah. This belt is trash. Well, it's trash and not trash. This depends on if the lines are paired or not. If these lines are all individual effects, these suck, because it means that there's periods of 5 seconds where your belt is actively just detriment and no benefit. If they are paired effects, like it's you always crit and enemies always crit, you cannot hit, or you cannot be hit. But like they can't be paired because like the cannot hit lines don't make sense. So these are probably standalone effects, at which point, ew, but whatever, it's funny. This flask was really good for Archmage characters. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw the double effect of low life. There's also probably some use with the low life on actual life builds, but I couldn't really see it. But I know that Archmage builds at one point, mana builds at one point were using foreboding mana flasks to refill, or I guess it wasn't just Archmage, it was more like Arcane Cloak and like Indigon setups. They were using foreboding mana flasks though. And so there's a chance this becomes relevant, although I think it's hard to replace Foible, but it'll be interesting to see. And this helmet is meme, or just chest is meme. I want to know what the actual roll range on this chest is though. You get a ridiculous amount of life for not having any other life mods in any of your other gear. The problem with this is that it says life modifiers, so you can't even have regen or recovery rate, like any life mods on your gear, and I think that's going to be what kills this plate. But these are some cool ideas, at least. Like I'm open to them trying a new version of Calum's Heart, for example. Other than that, all right. Next big thing, Sanctum. It's funny that I mentioned how Trial of the Ancestors is a lot like Sanctum in a bit of a way, because Sanctum is back and it's itemized. This item takes you into Sanctum. This item is a Sanctum. Let me explain. So this item allows you to enter. You like use this to enter the Sanctum, right? Then when you run a floor, you get this, an itemized Sanctum. And so you can either continue your own run or sell it to somebody else. I imagine there's going to be like a weird little sub economy in like selling off high risk, high reward runs, but I don't want to think too much on that right now. We'll talk about that whenever it happens. And then relics are back with some rebalancing changes to it because of them being tradable and whatnot now as opposed to non-tradable. There's two additional things here. Sanctified relics, you might notice, are not here. If you were a Sanctum player, you know what I'm talking about. They were permanent. They were stat increases for your actual character as opposed to for your runs. Sanctified relics are not in core at this point. The other thing is that your defenses now actually, like, here we go. So you see your defenses, armor, evasion, yes, now have effects that affect the Sanctum. Your armor is a mitigation against resolve loss. Evasion can avoid resolve loss, and ES now gives you a Aegis effect against resolve loss. Aegis, think like the elemental Aegis from Elementalist, or the Aegises from the various elemental shields like Auxiliaris. Very cool idea indeed. I don't know. We didn't really get an idea of the scaling of how that works, right? Like from a character with 60k armor, is my mitigation just going to be absurd? Like they didn't really get into that, so we'll have to see how that goes. Alrighty, now that's the League mechanic stuff, right? We've talked about Ancestors. Oh right, I completely skipped over one of the cooler things. If you're a lore fan, Navali's back. It's why we use silver coins to get back in. It's pretty cool. I like completely forgot. But like I remember like hearing her voice and being like, "Oh my god, it's just Navali." All right, now as this tradition with challenge leagues in the past year, huge end game update, or like it's not like boss change or anything, but now there are 16 new keystone passives on the Atlas Passive tree. This translates roughly to we added keystones for pretty much every mechanic that didn't have a good one supporting it before. Here's an example. Extreme Archaeology. This is the new expedition one. The footage for this is hilarious. It literally just places one giant nuke. And now, so I was thinking about like what would be the use case for this, and well, this sucks if your build is like weak to a number of mods, right? Or I guess if you just open an expedition that has way too many of the like has 2 or 3 immunities that you can't deal with it, right? But like, okay, what if it doesn't though? This is an active buff. This is a very high risk, high reward way to play expedition because it removes that time that you spend like placing down 5 fucking explosives, and instead just gives you one massive explosion. So I'm a huge fan. I think this is a really funny way to go risk reward. Next up, we have Lucid Dreams. This is another really funny one. When we first heard it, we were all like, what in the world? And then we thought about it. Or it was more importantly, we were like, why would you do this? But we forgot that Vol side areas have effects on them that are good. I have to maybe at some point I'm gonna at least go look through this for my own data. I might publish it somewhere. It might be for my subs, like my Twitch subs. So if you're not already subbed there, check it out. Also, the links. I stream. I stream most nights. You know the deal. You should go check it out sometime. But Lucid Dreams is a Vol side areas are no longer corrupted. Vol side areas have a list of like rewards it can grant. For example, it can give you incursion items. It can give you ultimatum aspects. It can give mortal fragments. There's a number of things that it can do. You can even just have it give all orbs. Now, the interesting thing is there are two parts to this that intrigue me. One, the ability to roll it means that you could use it, especially like in an SSF environment, potentially, to farm more ultimatum aspects. And two, and I think one that I hadn't thought of until maybe like late last night, is I want to know if uncorrupting Vol side areas means that the items you drop in there are no longer guaranteed to be corrupted. This is a bit of a double-edged sword, by the way. Corrupted items of all side areas are a great source of corrupted 6 links for fusing for 20 fusings to the vendor, or just items to sell/use early on in the league start. But if they're non-corrupted, they can become a source of farming incursion items, for example. Incursion modifiers are very powerful. They're things like the percent res and percent damage against chilled enemies on gloves, or Guadalitzi's the massive life and percent life on chess pieces. There's a number of really strong fixes into an incursion. If this is the way to farm that could be very interesting as well. So this node has some potential. I might have to test it out too. And then this one, this one got me really excited. Disruptive play. The Maven summons 1 to 3 additional bosses when witnessing bosses. And the modifiers to the final map boss in each map apply to these bosses. My understanding, they didn't really clarify this well in the presentation. So, and also, if somebody heard a clarification on this, please let me know in the comments. Just like, hey, no, disruptive play does work this way. My understanding is that the disruptive play is a rate increase on how many witnesses you get per map. So you get a minimum of 2 witnesses a map, but it potentially can go to 4 with this on. I believe that's accurate. And if it is, this is a huge buff to actually doing like 10 ways. Because it means that you'll actually be getting witnesses for once. 10 maps to see any progress when you weren't playing with Eater Exarch as a result was really, really bad. I think if you're getting 2 to 4 attempts at Awakened Gems per Maven Witness, and you're going down to like somewhere between 3 and 5 maps between 10 ways, I think this is a massive, massive buff to 10-way farming. And you might think, why would you farm 10 ways? Which, this is a true statement. They kind of pulled the power out of 10 ways a bit, like when I in my a couple of leagues ago, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I tended to be a good source of Guardian maps. I need to do some testing to see if this is still true, or somebody can just let me know if that's still true. But if it's still true, it could be a really good way to do that, or to farm out Awakened Gems, because I think you could definitely knock these down faster than you could knock down specifically Maven, unless your character's like really strong and you can afford that cost. But at which point you're not farming Maven for the gems, you're farming Maven for like Genesis, right? Interesting way to think about it. We'll see how this plays out. I'm very excited for the show to play. These 3 were all really exciting. They showed off another one on screen, the Blight one. What is it called? I think it's called Cassia's Pride. It was monsters take 75% less damage from you and take 300% more damage from your towers. Which, okay, it's cool. It plays into the tower defense fantasy. But remember earlier when I talked about Trial of the Ancestors potentially getting trivialized by gear? Blight is already at that point. So, like, that keystone sucks to me. We're also getting some new support gems this league, which have only shown 2 so far. Actually, they've shown... It's only 2. Yeah, it's only 2. They've only shown 2 in name. There were a couple other ones that were shown, like, in footage that seemed pretty cool. Like one that makes your war cries deal damage, like apply a dot, which was really cool. Yeah, you see, making Warcry support and deal damage. There's a totem mortar that looked really funny. Projectiles return to you. This is a new support. Returning projectile support, which by the way, this means if you were a fan of Venture Cascade builds, you're getting better long-term support for it in exchange for your notable getting obliterated. By the way, Venture Cascade is going to get destroyed in these patch notes when they come out, but this does mean that we're going to have a source of return more permanent, and this applies to all skills. Right now, this is already a really good support. By the way, the support says effectively 30% damage on 30% more damage if the target can be hit by the return, which is really good. Oh, sorry about that. The other half, this probably scales up to either 60 or 50% less, I'm guessing 60, but I could totally see it going to 50. And so it's like, yeah, this could be good. This will probably still be good, really good anyways. It just will no longer be unnerved and on top of a standard lineup of supports. It will now replace your weakest support on projectile characters. This might have some really good implications for some builds that I haven't thought too deep about it just yet. I need to see how this interacts with stuff like they didn't show. So on this page, they didn't show. They showed on screen, but not on this page. You should watch the trailer for this. But they showed a new mind support. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. That allowed you to support bow and wand skills with mines, and it threw them out in like a little splat, in like a cone, like 3 or 4 of them at a time, and just went crazy. That one goes insane, at least for visual clarity purposes. If returning projectile support, we'll see how that goes. Frigid Bond, on the other hand, this one is really, really funny to me. Supported skills deal damage and chill enemies between you and your linked targets. This is going to be hilarious to play with. One of my friends and I are looking at this like pretty heavily, like really heavily, because we think it'd be really funny. I just don't know how that's gonna look, right? But it would be really funny to play the footage is just 2 people like running around a line between them, like cutting down enemies. That'd be a really fun way to play the game. I'm just imagining trying to do like Maven with that on. That'll be a fun thing. Okay, and 2 Ascendancy reworks. Guardian. I'm gonna cover these in more detail probably in a separate video because these will take a lot to get my thoughts out. My initial thoughts on Guardian are harmony of purpose. I need some clarity on what between you and linked targets means. I need to know what these minion nodes have been turned into. Otherwise, I feel very net neutral on Guardian at the moment, and it's not because I think the changes are fine. It's because I don't know what some of it does. I'm very concerned about the things that I do know. This Ascendancy lost PDR. It got lost PDR. It granted to party members. It lost stun immunity. It granted to party members. It lost damage. It was speed. It was giving to party members. In exchange, it did gain some more very strong defensive talents. But I need to see what the link stuff does before I'm able to like really give a good opinion here, because I'm not sure how much offensive power this provides. And we have Chieftain, which I've heard some very mixed opinions on. What I will say is this, because I was not a fan of old Chieftain, and I can tell you for sure I'm not a fan of new Chieftain either. But before you go off, think it's because I think the rework is bad. It's because no, I think Chieftain is bad. Conceptually, this Ascendancy has no speed and is in low proximity to speed. And that's just kind of always been one of my big determiners on whether or not I play something. It would just take a lot of effort to make a Chieftain fast for me. But a lot of these nodes don't really assist in that goal either. At least not apparently. There's some thinking that I want to do with a couple nodes, because so I've heard some takes that say this is a great rework. I've heard some takes that say this is one of the worst reworks I've ever done. My general take is this: I think specifically Holoco is incredible. Being melding without a downside is really nice, and Tesalio pairs well with it. Rip Ultrasolid, and then what you're gonna see here is a bit of it's a little bit of a nod to what Chieftain used to be, as in I think a lot of opinions right now are trying to figure out if it's better or worse than old Chieftain. And what I'll say is I don't think this is necessarily better than old Chieftain. For example, Tasalio and Valico on old Chieftain were already good nodes. They just changed what made them good. Arangui was a very good node for totems previously. Uh, Now it's a different type of node for totems, and I haven't determined if I think this is good or not yet. This looks really bad at first glance, but I'm not sure. We used to have like percent strength and Ash and Pen and gain Fizz Ass in the Ascendancy tree. For Chieftain. And that's no longer here, and instead we've got stuff like free support, free 7 links, free air quote. Strike skills added to Tawa. Ramako's rework, like the Namahu's changed to be Fireborn with stats, right? Like what do you call it? There's a lot of changes that are not very one to one in terms of what we got, and it makes it really difficult for me to evaluate how I feel about this one in particular. So my general take right now is I think the defensive options in this ascendancy got better, not because I think the numbers of them are better, but because I think the uniqueness of it is better. Valico's is a Valico. This effect only existed in one other place in the game. And that comes with a massive downside that this version does not, and I think that should not be understated. I also think that Tsukahama has some very high potential. That's just a free 7 link. It's 10% damage and it's clear speed, which saves you points on having to invest in it. You can change your gloves from needing strike, right? There's some stuff there. I want to see how Tahoe plays with strikes and stuff, but I'll cover more of this in detail when I do some deep dives and talk to people who play both these ascendancies a little bit more than me, because I do not actually play either of these ascendancies with that much. However, I'm just very aware. I'm just studied on how they work. And there's a boss skill event, but that's like kind of the end here. Supporter packs are actually pretty sick, but I'm not about to show that for them. They can show that on themselves. Alrighty. Overall, though, this new league looking pretty good. Got me really hyped up, and I look forward to covering it. We'll talk. We'll be talking in the coming weeks as patch notes and gem info and league starters and all sorts of stuff start rolling through. You can bet your ass I'll be covering all that here on this channel. Anyways, that covers it for today. We got a lot going on. We got to get ready for more streams, right? More information dumped today. I saw content ongoing. You should watch it if you're a fan. If you're like on the fence about whether or not you should watch XLCon, watch it. It's a good experience. You just get so much information about the game, and it's also always awesome to see so many people just hyped up about the same thing. Anyways, that's gonna cover it for me today. Have a great one. Peace.